What would you do if the friendly faces offering you a ride home turned out to be the architects of your worst nightmare, wielding everyday tools as instruments of unspeakable horror? In the sun-drenched highways of 1979 Southern California, two ordinary-looking men in a silver van prowled the streets, their smiles hiding a darkness that would claim 5 young lives in a spree of calculated terror. This is the chilling tale of Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, the Toolbox Killers, a story of twisted partnership, escalating brutality, and the haunting echoes of evil that linger long after justice is served. But how did these two men, once strangers behind prison bars, forge a bond that unleashed one of America's most horrifying serial killing duos? The answer begins in the shadows of their fractured pasts, where red flags waved unnoticed. Lawrence Bittaker entered the world on September 27, 1940, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, an unwanted child placed in an orphanage before being adopted by a couple whose frequent moves left him rootless and resentful. By age 12, he was already stealing, his first arrest for shoplifting marking the start of a lifelong pattern. Despite an IQ of 138 that hinted at untapped potential, school bored him, and he dropped out at 17. Imagine a bright teenager, capable of so much, yet channeling his intelligence in a crime, car theft, hit and run, evading police. By 19, he was locked up in the California Youth Authority, emerging only to face rejection from his adoptive parents, who had moved away without a trace. His record grew: robbery in 1961, parole violations, assaults. Psychiatrists labeled him a borderline psychopath, manipulative and hostile, prescribing medications he ignored. In 1974, he stabbed a supermarket clerk who caught him stealing, landing him back in prison, a cold, calculating man whose anger simmered just below the surface. Roy Norris, born February 5, 1948, in Greeley, Colorado, faced his own storm of neglect. Conceived out of wedlock, his parents married to dodge scandal, but the family unraveled, shuttling him between foster homes where abuse, physical and possibly sexual, scarred his psyche. At 16, after an incident with a relative, he tried to end his life, only to be told by his parents they never wanted him or his sister. Dropping out of school, he joined the Navy in 1965, serving in Vietnam without seeing combat. But his discharge in 1970 came amid diagnoses of severe schizoid personality disorder. Back home, the violence erupted. In 1969, he assaulted a woman in San Diego, bashing her with a rock. Committed to a Atascadero State Hospital as a mentally disordered sex offender, he served 5 years, released on probation in 1975, only to rape another woman 3 months later, earning a sentence at California Men's Colony. Norris thrived on fear, deriving twisted pleasure from dominating women, his prejudices and traumas fueling a deep-seated rage. These two broken souls, haunted by abandonment and driven by inner demons, were on collision courses. But little did the world know, when their paths crossed in a prison cell, a monstrous alliance was about to form, one that would turn fantasies of control into a summer of sheer horror. In the dim, echoing halls of California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo during the mid-1970s, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris first locked eyes. Bittaker, serving time for his 1974 assault, taught Norris jewelry making in the prison workshop, but their conversations soon delved into darker territories. Norris confessed his assaults, admitting the rush he felt from terrifying women, the power in their fear. Bittaker, who had no prior sexual crimes on record, revealed his own chilling logic. Any rape must end in murder to silence witnesses. Bonded by misogyny and violent urges, they spent hours whispering plans, abducting teenage girls, one for each age from 13 to 19, subjecting them to prolonged agony before death. Imagine the cold calculation in those cell block talks, mapping out a blueprint for terror, while the world outside moved on obliviously. By 1978, their pact was sealed. Upon release, they would reunite and make their fantasies real. Bittaker walked free on October 15, 1978, settling in Burbank, working as a machinist and charming local teens with beer and marijuana at his motel. Norris followed on January 15, 1979, moving to his mother's trailer in Redondo Beach. Within weeks, Norris tested his impulses alone, assaulting a woman in the desert but letting her go, a reckless act that foreshadowed his paranoia. They reconnected in late February, excitement building as they plotted. But what horrors would unfold when they turned those prison dreams into daylight nightmares? Freedom had arrived, and with it, the hunt began. With Bittaker's earnings funding their scheme, they purchased a silver-gray 1977 GMC Vandura van in February 1979, dubbing it Murder Mac for its windowless cargo area and sliding door ideal for swift grabs. They outfitted it meticulously. Curtains for privacy, a cooler stocked with beer to lure hitchhikers, restraints hidden away, tools gathered in a box under the passenger seat, pliers, ice picks, hammers, wire hangers, ordinary items twisted into weapons of control. From February to June, they practiced on over 20 young women, picking up hitchhikers along Pacific Coast Highway, beaches, and streets, photographing them without harm to refine their ruses, offers of rides, marijuana, or photos for modeling gigs. Scouting remote spots, they settled on a fire road in the San Gabriel Mountains, accessible yet secluded, snapping the gate's lock and replacing it with their own for undisturbed access. Blending into California's carefree culture, these two middle-aged men, Bittaker with his intellectual air, Norris with his unassuming demeanor, appeared harmless, chatting amiably as they drove. The beaches of Redondo and Hermosa buzzed with unsuspecting teens enjoying the summer sun, oblivious to the van circling like a shark. Tension mounted with each dry run. Their urges grew impatient. But as June dawned, the first victim would step into their trap, unaware that a simple thumb out for a ride would seal her fate forever. The nightmare ignited on June 24, 1979, under the warm California sun. 16-year-old Lucinda Cindy Schaefer, a bright church-going girl from Glendale, finished a youth meeting in Redondo Beach and hitched a ride home. Bittaker and Norris spotted her, pulling over with smiles and an offer of a lift. She climbed in, but instead of home, they veered toward the mountains. Imagine her growing unease as the conversation turned sinister, the van doors locking her in. At the fire road, they bound her, her pleas falling on deaf ears. The torture began, prolonged, methodical, using tools to inflict pain and dominance. Strangulation with a wire hanger ended her life. Her body was hurled down a ravine, never to be found. What twisted satisfaction did they feel, disposing of her like trash? Just 2 weeks later, on July 8th, 18-year-old Andrea Joy Hall hitchhiked along Pacific Coast Highway after visiting her boyfriend. The van approached, Norris forcing her inside at knife point while Bittaker drove. In the mountains, they manipulated her with false promises, but the agony ensued, escalating brutality with ice picks piercing her in a bid for control. Her body, too, vanished into the wilderness, undiscovered. The duo's confidence swelled. They craved more. September 3rd brought a double strike. 15-year-old Jackie Doris Gilliam and 13-year-old Jacqueline Leah Lamp, friend from a bus stop in Hermosa Beach, accepted a ride after being offered marijuana. The van sped to the fire road, where the girls' terror unfolded over 2 agonizing days. Lamp succumbed first to blows and stabs. Gilliam endured longer, her resilience only prolonging the suffering. Both bodies were dumped down an embankment, later found by hikers. Imagine the girls' desperate bond in those final hours, clinging to hope amid the horror. What if one had escaped? The killings accelerated, each pushing their sadism further. But as October loomed, a final act on Halloween would capture evidence that doomed them. What chilling recordings would expose their depravity? Halloween night, October 31st, 1979, 16-year-old Shirley Lynette Ledford left a party in Sunland, hitchhiking home after a shift at a gas station. Bittaker and Norris cruised Van Nuys Boulevard, spotting her thumb out. They offered a ride, but Norris yanked her into the van, binding her as Bittaker drove erratically through suburbs, her screams muffled by traffic. Unlike previous secluded tortures, this unfolded on city streets, heightening the risk and their thrill. At a quiet spot, they activated a tape recorder, capturing every moment of her ordeal. The audio documented her pleas, the slaps, the demands for screams, tools like pliers and a hammer, inflicting calculated pain. Imagine her isolation, begging for mercy as the tape rolled on, preserving the horror for their later enjoyment. After hours, strangulation with pliers ended it. Her body was discarded on a random lawn in Hermosa Beach, a bold deviation meant to taunt authorities. That tape, 17 minutes of raw agony, would later haunt all who heard it. Jurors weeping, investigators forever changed. Norris grew paranoid, confiding in a former prison mate, but what betrayal would unravel their pact and lead to their capture? By early November 1979, cracks appeared. Norris, fearing Bittaker's escalating recklessness, assaulted another woman in Redondo Beach but released her. Panicking, he confessed fragments of the murders to Jimmy Dalton, a fellow ex-inmate from Men's Colony. Dalton, horrified, tipped off his lawyer, who alerted police. Detectives surveilled Norris, arresting him on November 20th for the recent assault and marijuana possession. Bittaker was detained the same day after victims identified photos from their van. Under interrogation, Norris cracked first, admitting the killings and leading police to the San Gabriel Fire Road. Bodies of Gilliam and Lamp were recovered, confirming his tales. Evidence piled up: the toolbox, Polaroids of victims, the van's hidden horrors. Bittaker remained defiant, but Norris's full confession, detailing the pact, methods, and disposals, sealed their fate. Imagine the relief washing over California as the van, once a mobile chamber of death, sat impounded. But the trial ahead would unearth even deeper nightmares. What reactions would the tape provoke in court? The trial commenced in Los Angeles Superior Court on January 15, 1981, with Bittaker facing 26 charges, including 5 murders, kidnappings, and rapes. Norris, pleading guilty to avoid death, turned state's witness, his testimony painting a vivid picture of their sadistic partnership. He described the abductions, the mountain tortures, the glee and dominance, his words emotionless, as if recounting a mundane day. Prosecutor Stephen K. presented the toolbox, pliers stained, ice picks bent, evoking gasps. Victims' families sat stone-faced, their anguish palpable as Polaroid flashed on screens. The climax came with the Ledford tape. For those of you who do not know what hell is like, you will find out, Kay warned. As it played, Shirley's screams piercing the courtroom. Jurors fled in tears, lawyers wept, even hardened reporters broke down. Bittaker smirked through it all, showing no remorse, while his own testimony unraveled into a breakdown. The jury deliberated briefly, convicting Bittaker on all counts. But what sentence would befit such unimaginable evil? Life or death? On February 17, 1981, Bittaker was sentenced to death, the judge decrying his crimes as beyond any human understanding. He spent decades on San Quentin's death row, filing frivolous appeals until labeled a vexatious litigant, dying of natural causes on December 13, 2019, at 79. Norris received 45 years to life, denied parole repeatedly, passing away on February 24, 2020, at 72. Their legacy reshaped justice: stricter parole for sex offenders, heightened awareness of hitchhiking dangers, and a somber reminder of evil's banality. Psychologically, their bond revealed how shared fantasies amplified depravity. Bittaker the cunning planner, Norris the eager follower, both thriving on power over the vulnerable. The victims, Cindy, Andrea, Jackie, Leah, Shirley, deserve remembrance as vibrant lives stolen, not mere statistics. If you lived in California during that terror-filled summer, how safe would you have felt hitchhiking those highways? What would you have done in their place? Share your thoughts below. If this story shocked you, hit the like button and subscribe for more unbelievable true stories. This was the story of the Toolbox Killers, a chilling reminder that evil sometimes hides in plain sight.